Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Jeff Needs Sports. This is the Buckeye Remix, a part of the Off the Ball Network Productions. It's another good week. We get to recap a dominant game by the Buckeyes Saturday, a 52-13 beatdown over Rutgers. We'll talk about the mostly good. Let's face it, it was basically 2 quarters of football, and then let's get to next week. So it was kind of odd, but it was fun. It was fun to have what I would call a normal game, for the first time this season, and a hopeful game, an encouraging game, an optimistic game. So, first of all, overview 52-13. We talked about it. Buckeyes, yeah, you have another 541 yards. Basically did whatever they wanted on offense. Defense looked pretty good. Scored another touchdown, which is pretty cool. I think it's third week in a row they've scored a touchdown, which is awesome because that shows aggressiveness, that shows speed, that shows kind of getting a feel for the game, which was very encouraging. So overall, just it's funny. It's one of these things. The time of possession was like split down the middle, but these are these misleading stats that you see in a game. But it was really just the Buckeyes did everything they had to do. Go to Rutgers. Rutgers, was ready, have fun. I don't think they really I don't think it was upset alert or anything like that. But the Buckeyes did their job, got home in a good mood. Long story short, that's what we needed to have happen. So my knee jerks were, I just said it. Defense looked more aggressive, looked like they're having more fun, looked like they're starting to understand their position, starting to get a feel for where they need to be on the field. The offense, Stroud looked healthier for whatever that means. However, whatever he did in the last 2 weeks, he feels better, looked better. The wide receivers are always going to be open. Travion Henderson looks great. He's solidified the starting running back position at this point. Like they can kind of now they can start experimenting. They can start opening it up. We got Ruckert involved. It's starting to open up the offense. Things are flowing a little more. Offensive line did a great job. So the knee jerks were that things were just basically clicking, if that makes any sense. So on the offensive side, I just said it. Quarterback looked better. The offensive line still looks great. Running backs really are they're up to speed. These a lot of these players are very young. They're getting up to speed. They're feeling good about it. Wide receivers are just off the charts, just like we knew they would be. So essentially now I think the playbook is, I don't know how open it is. I don't know how far Ryan Day can take this, but Ohio State doesn't have a super complicated playbook anyway. So I would guess that 60% of it is open. And that's enough. That's enough with the talent they have. So very encouraged. Defense on the other side, it was kind of a double-sided sword here. Defensive line looked better. Still not really touching the quarterback, which is deeply concerning. They're holding their ground, but they're not really, they're not making splash plays one way or another. So it's worrisome, but they play good. Linebackers are starting to tackle a little better, starting to cover a little better. They're starting to move a little better, if that makes any sense. So that was encouraging. Defensive backs, I think, are starting to kind of get a feel for where they need to be, get a feel for positioning, get a feel for who's going to do what. So as a unit, I think they played better. Even if you look at the Burke interception for a touchdown, they automatically, all the players, switched over to offense and blocked, and just as a unit, looked like they were playing much better. So very, very encouraging on defense. So, it was, this is one of these games. This is how it was supposed to look. Buckeyes did their job. Okay, it's cool. So we'll get to the report card here. Report card's pretty good this week. Quarterback. Stroud did all the work. 333 passing yards. Stroud had 333 passing yards. This wasn't a split team, but the guy, he goes 333 yards or 330 yards. I'm sorry, 5 touchdowns. Um, he got an A minus, and I know that sounds critical when he had a perfect rating. He had a perfect quarterback rating for a college quarterback, but I still think there's some rushing yards to be had, some easy rushing yards to be had. There's we'd be silly to act like he couldn't improve at this point, but he looked great, and it verified what everybody was saying. He did need a break, and also if he's accurate, it really opens up this offense. So he kind of proved everybody right and probably proved a lot of people wrong at the same time. So good job by CJ. Great game. It was never in doubt. Wide receivers, 5 touchdowns. The receiving unit, 5 touchdowns. They couldn't be covered as usual. Great downfield blocking. I really like how physical they are. In the run game and the screen game, and when one of the other receivers gets the ball. So just they did a wonderful job. They get an A. It's hard for this unit not to get an A every week because they're just so they're they are really the machine that runs this offense. Uh, Running backs. I gave the running backs a B. I know it sounds crazy, but essentially they just weren't asked to do a lot. If they would have came into this game and decided, hey, we want to run for 400 yards, I think they could. I think they could have. I apologize, but I think they could have. They just Henderson's the real deal, but they weren't going to wear him out against Rutgers. Um, Most of the game they were just killing the clock. So in the second half, they really didn't. They really weren't put in a position to blow this game wide open, which I'm totally sure they could have. Um, I thought Crowley looked good. I thought that was very encouraging to have another guy really explosive. Everybody averaged over 5 yards a carry. I think as a whole they were somewhere around 8 or 9. So really, really good job by the running backs. They just were limited on what they had to do. We talked. So offensive line, I gave the offensive line an A. It's just another good game. It's a solid unit. They kept the heat off Stroud. There wasn't these freak sacks. There wasn't these blindside hits that could really screw things up. That they blocked pretty good for the running backs. A lot of big holes. Just a solid game by them. It's hard to grade them, you know, on a game like this because I don't now looking back, I can't quantify how good Rutgers defensive line and linebackers are, but a solid game by the offensive line, an A for them. Defensive line, it's a little hard on them. They got a B minus because they didn't give up a lot, but they're still not getting to the quarterbacks. There's still no splash plays. The young guys are starting to step up. We're seeing Sawyer more, which is a good thing, but they're not wreaking havoc yet. They're kind of just holding their ground. They held up pretty good against the run this week, a little better, but they're just I don't know. They're just not reaching the quarterback. It's hard for me to give them too much credit for as talented as they're supposed to be and as strong of a unit as they're supposed to be. So they got a B minus this week. At the end of the day, that's not the worst thing in the world. Linebackers got a C plus. They look better. Just not making a lot of impact plays, and that may be positioning, that may be scheme or whatever. I'm not on the inside to know this, but aren't they just aren't making a lot of splash plays. They are tackling better. They're covering a little better. I said that, but they're also not difference makers. And one guy's not stepping up. They did get a late interception, Eichenberg, which was cool, but it's still one of the weaker units of the entire Buckeyes team. But that doesn't mean that they played bad. It is what it is. Defensive backs, I thought they played pretty good. They held their ground. They gave up a huge pass play. Not going to kill them on that, but it does factor in. They give a huge pass play, but they scored a touchdown, which is cool. You know, it's just they're one of these units to where they're playing better. They're playing as a unit. We talked about the defense. Their reaction time's getting quicker. They really bothered Vedral, the quarterback. They really made him think and slow down and clutch the ball and things like that. They did a really good job over the weekend but I'm not going to sit here and I can't give them an A plus when I don't think that Rutgers is the best passing offense that they're going to see this year. But they got a solid B, and they've got better every week, and I'm very hopeful. The young guys once again are starting to kind of take over and step to the front, and that's encouraging. That's very encouraging. Head coach, that this is a coaching staff, as a unit. The main thing is I thought they did a great job coming off all this quarterback talk that we've had the last 2 weeks. I thought they handled it well. I thought they, coming off, the Akron game and McCord and all that. I thought they were like, no, Stroud's playing. It's fine. McCord did this, nipped everything in the bud. The team came out with great energy against Rutgers, which is that's something you always want to see. Like that means they were prepared to go into the game. And so the team was ready. The energy was high. They put this game out of reach immediately, and there was no quarterback controversy to talk about afterwards. There was none of that. So I thought overall the coaching staff did a great job this week. Um, so it is what it is. We don't have a real dramatic game to talk about. It didn't come down the wire, which is awesome. The meat of the schedule is coming up for Ohio State, but I think it'd be crazy for anybody to say that they're not getting better. I said this earlier today. If we're gonna give credit to teams for wins against average opponents, then we can't all of a sudden decide that, like, oh no, Rutgers is bad, when a week ago when Michigan beats them, like, oh, it's a pretty solid victory. Like we have to keep things even. Yes, I know Rutgers isn't a great team, but I also know that 10 days ago, they were considered to be an up and coming team, in the Big Ten. So that's all I'm saying about that situation. So it is what it is. Good victory. A lot to build on here. Really looking forward to, what's coming up. We got Maryland in week 6, which they look terrible against Iowa, but that does not mean that they're a terrible football team. Anything can happen, as we saw last week on the football field. So, and that's it. Good week. It's a victory week. Um, we're happy. We'll take it. A lot of momentum going into the rest of the season. I think we feel much better about several positions on the field than we did, starting the season. So we're gonna have to, the Buckeyes are gonna have to fight through it. They're gonna have to beg. They're gonna have to plead, to make their case, and they're gonna have to win. So it is what it is. But as of right now, like that's all we can hope for out of that game. I'm happy and on to Maryland. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. Check out offtheballnetwork.com. Check out my college football rankings. They'll be coming out soon. And be kind and go Bucks.